Hey, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in the game Salton Sea, the latest game from DeVere Games, or one of the many DeVere games that have been released recently, along with the White Castle, which is probably my favorite of the bunch so far. So in Salton Sea, it looks like this really beautifully produced game with a lot of little icons to look at from across the board. Uh, and they actually are this shade of gray, which is a little bit tough to see a little bit at times, but it ends up working out. I had a good first play experience, and that's because this is a very rewarding game. The game is often giving you things that you get to turn into other things, and that feels good. There are two mechanisms I want to highlight. One is a very simple, streamlined mechanism, and one is the core mechanism of the game that I think is really, really clever. Let me start with that. So the core mechanism of the game, and let's see if I can find a better photo of it, is that you are acquiring cards, and really you start out with cards, and those cards are both cards and money. Let's see if I can. Here's an example here. So this card, this is a card that is worth $5. So on your turn, if you need to spend some money, you can spend this $5 card as $5, or you can place a worker on this card denoted by these diagonal lines. That means you can place a worker here and take this action. You can take this action actually up to 3 times at this cost. And so this is similar to the default actions on your board. I'll go back there to the board right here. Similar to the default actions on the board, but on the cards, the actions are better. And so the game constantly gives you a interesting but also difficult decision of, do I use this card that I have as money, or do I use this card as an action? And if you use it as an action, you get it back at the end of the round. It returns to your hand. And then you have the choice again, do I spend it as money or do I use it as an action? This core mechanism itself, I think, is really, really clever. Really clever mechanism. But there's also a smaller mechanism that I think is worth highlighting in the game because it's more nuanced, it's small, but it's really clever. And I've seen it in one other game. It's probably in some other games too. I've seen this in Above and Below. But there are slots at the top of your board. You can see one of them right here. This is one slot. This is your starting slot. But there are also 3 tiles to the right of it. You can see the first tile here that you can unlock that have similar slots to this. And what this says is, at the end of the game, you get 1 victory point times 1 victory point for each of the points listed above it on the card. So it's 1 times this number. And these cards have victory points. We saw them numbered from 1 to 3. They might go higher than that, but I think most of them are 1 to 3. So this is 1 times 1. This next slot over here is times 2, and then times 3, and then times 4. This led to a really satisfying puzzle in the game because it meant that I wanted to get these cards that scored victory points. I sought them out. I tried to get these tiles, and I tried to get these cards so that they had victory points, because not all of them did, but some of them did have victory points. And I tried to order them. You can only place it in the leftmost slot. And so I tried to order them so that the last card that I took was the highest possible victory point, because I knew it was going to be multiplied by 4. Just a simple kind of math puzzle, but it really did play into a lot of my decisions in the game. The timing of when I got these tiles, because I had actually worked to get these tiles, and the timing of when I would gain these cards, waiting for the right moment to gain these cards so that I could have the best multiplier. And I cared a little bit less about the value of the victory point on the leftmost card, because I knew it was only going to be multiplied by 1. I wanted to save that card for the right time so I could put it in the final slot on the far right. So just a nice little order of operations puzzle. I mentioned Above and Below. Above and Below does this with resources, where you're gathering different resources, and the value of those resources increases and is also multiplicative based on the number of resources you place on the slot rather than a single card. That's a really neat system too. But I really like this tiny nuance mechanism that actually results in a lot of meaningful decisions in the game, along with the card-based economy in the game. Cards are money. Cards are also action spaces, renewable action spaces that become action spaces or money again in the future. So yeah, those are my favorite mechanisms in Salton Sea. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've played the game, or if you can think of other games that use any mechanisms that are a little bit similar to these. Thanks.